Affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the course of your testimony during these proceedings. So help you God.
I do.
Thank you, sir. Would you please be seated? Mr. Armayo, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Dowd, I'd like you to please keep your voice up and speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear you. Were you once a police officer of the New York City Police Department?
Yes, I was.
How long were you a police officer?
10 years and 5 months.
Mr. Dowd, during those 10 years as a police officer, did you use your authority to commit crimes and acts of corruption in violation of your sworn duty to uphold the law?
Yes, I did.
While you were in uniform and on duty, did you commit thefts?
Yes.
Did you commit extortion?
Yes.
Did you engage in narcotics trafficking?
Yes.
Did you protect drug operations?
Yes.
Did you engage in personal drug use?
Yes.
How many crimes and acts of corruption do you estimate you committed as a New York City police officer?
Hundreds.
New York is in the grips of a crime wave.
Crack is now sweeping New York.
Justice Department officials now say there is a direct link between crime and cocaine.
Evidence of heavy money and heavy violent drug traffic is all around.
It was like the heyday of crack. Every city was having trouble with violence.
Don't move!
New York City at the time was having 3,500 murders a year, and East New York was the worst part of that. It was a war zone.
They were empty buildings. They were just living in them and running electric from the street pole to the houses. It looked like Beirut.
East New York at the time was very, very poor, so you had all of the socioeconomic contributors to crime, all of that converging, and it was a hotbed for crime in New York City.
East New York, Brooklyn, 7-5 precinct. Back in the late 80s, was the deadliest precinct in the country.
The 7-5 precinct runs north to south from Jamaica Avenue to Storage City.
Every year we led the city in homicides. We led the city in police shootings. There was a captain here who would take a Polaroid photo and say, "Give this to your wife so she'll remember who you were."
It was the highest murder rate in the country in a little 5-square-mile precinct.
You had the fucking gangbangers and the drug dealers, and you could be sitting in a radio car in one corner and hear shots going off 100 yards away behind you. Who the fuck did I burn to get put here? It would scare Clint Eastwood.
The radio doesn't stop. It's one call after another, after another, after another.
Hi, it's code for 148.
You got a backlog of 200 jobs to answer already. So you handle one job, now you're down to 199. No, the calls are still coming in. Accident, a dispute, a fire.
Homicides, robberies, rapes.
You name it, it just doesn't stop.
People on crack with guns. Drug dealers with guns. Young kids with guns. They were violent, man. Violent, violent, violent.
Welcome to East New York.
Welcome to the land of fuck. My name's Ken Eurell. Grew up in Rosedale, Queens. Irish Catholic. Catholic school for 12 years. My mother worked in Manhattan as a bookkeeper, and my father was a construction worker. It wasn't a dream to become a cop. I became a cop because I really had no direction in life. It could have just as easily been a fireman. But the test that came out first was the police officer test. So that's the test I took, and I did well, and I was called right away. I was called before I was 20 years old. We got a gun and shield, and I get assigned to the 7-5 precinct, East New York.
Before beginning your testimony about your career as a police officer, Mr. Dowd, I'd like to ask you a bit about your background. How old are you?
32.
Are you married?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been married?
8 years.
Do you have children?
I have 2 sons.
Are you from the New York area?
Yes.
What county are you from?
Suffolk County.
Will your family be listening to your testimony here today?
Yes.
When did you enter the police academy?
January 26, 1982.
Did you receive integrity training at the academy?
Some, yes.
What do you mean by some?
We had visits from internal affairs officers.
The life in the academy is sort of like going to a parochial school, and if you look back at it. It was a building time, a time to build a camaraderie with the guy next to you, the guy, whatever side of you started to form a bond as a unit.
Did you personally treat it seriously, the integrity training?
No.
And based on your conversations with your other recruits, did they treat it seriously?
No, that's how we all formulated our own opinions from that.
And based on what you could see, did the instructors treat it seriously?
Not at all.
I recall having internal affairs giving a lesson to the class. And after the individual left, our academy instructor looked at us and said, now, you can go that way or you can go this way. You want to be a successful cop, you don't go that way. And this is the academy. I didn't even step on the street yet, and I'm being told, side in this direction with whatever you got to do. Cover your ass. That was the biggest thing. You cover your ass so that you don't have to deal with internal affairs.
Mr. Dowd, in your experiences in your first year, did you come to learn what it meant for a police officer to be quote-unquote good?
Yes.
Could you tell the commissioners and the public what it means to be good in the police jargon as you know it?
Well, being good is a cop that would never give up another cop. A cop that if he witnesses something go down, he's 100% behind anything a cop does, no matter what it is.
We began to form a bond at that early stage. If you said blue, I said blue. You said green, it was green. I don't know, if Johnny says it's green, I saw green. You always took the side of the cop that was with you, because he was the only one that was going to back you up when you needed help.
Mr. Dowd, in a precinct like the 75th precinct, did it become particularly necessary to forge bonds with other police officers there?
Yes.
Why was that?
Survival.
Learning the streets is a transition process. It comes from the other cops, too. You'll learn from them what the street is telling you that you don't know it's telling you. You'll learn the walk of someone with a gun. You'll learn the eye drift of someone who maybe has drugs on them. You start to learn body language. But it's a process, because just because someone darts their eyes away from you, you're a rookie cop, you have no idea why they might be doing it. There comes a point where you have to make a decision on taking something that you find or vouchering something that you find.
NX 2514 can transmit on check.
In the beginning, as a good rookie cop, you're going to voucher what you find, no matter what it is. And then after probably a year or two, and you've been driving back and forth to work for the last, 400, 600 tours of duty, and you feel a little bit underappreciated. You feel like no one really cares. You're really not stemming the flow of crime like you thought you were gonna. And all of a sudden, you see an opportunity come along, and, eventually, one day I was hurting for money, and I just took a risk, and I pulled over a motorist who happened to be an 18-year-old mystery. Back then, it was called a Puerto Rican mystery. No license, no registration, no plates, no nothing. But he had a nice, thick stack of $100 bills on him. And I said to him, I like, you got about, $1,500 to $2,000 worth of tickets here. So I suggested that if he bought me a nice lobster lunch, I could let him go. And with that, he promptly took a couple $100 out of his wallet, left it on the back seat, and pulled out of the car, and I drove away like I was gonna get arrested, and I didn't, and I won.
When I first went to the precinct, I hear about this guy, Mike Dowd, and a group of his friends. They had a reputation. They were fucking out of control.
I met Mikey D, obviously, in the 7-5. Every now and then we would be paired up. First time I knew I could trust Mikey was we had handled a walk-in at the precinct.
We take this woman over to her house. Her husband's there. He's beating me. Can you just get me in the house? I want to get some clothes. Chickie and I roll up. We walk up the fucking staircase.
Man in his 20s, Rastafarian, dreadlocks, answers the door. He sees us, and it looks like his world has just ended. So at this point, we know something's on. The woman runs in. She grabs a couple of bags of clothes or whatever, and she runs out. She's gone. So Mikey grabs the guy. We get him pinned.
As I got him on the floor in his living room, there was a bag as big as a fuck. It was
Gigantic bag of fresh marijuana.
a 55-gallon drum. That's the size of this bag was filled with marijuana.
Couldn't even tie the top. Stalks were sticking out of the top of the bag.
I go, Chickie, under the fucking couch. He goes under the couch, pulls out a duffel bag.
When I opened up the bag, the thing was loaded with money.
He pulls out 2 guns. I go, what else is in there? He goes, cash. He takes the fucking bag, closes it, and puts it back under the couch, takes the 2 guns out. I go, what are you doing? Fuck the guns, there's cash in that bag.
I don't know how much money was in there. Minimum 20 large, 20,000, 25,000, around there somewhere. So I look at Mikey, he looks at me. And I guess right at that point right there, I knew I could trust Mikey, and I knew he could trust me.
So we peeled off about $8 grand, whatever we took from him. Left the house. I think Chickie took the 2 guns because he's a gun buff.
We tell the guy, this is your lucky day. You're getting off scot-free.
It's a good score. Yeah, absolutely.
I got 2 months' worth of paychecks in my pocket, and now I'm thinking, all kinds of stuff runs through your head. Is this a plant? Did anybody know anything? Where's the woman? Is this a setup? All of a sudden she ran out, started to become paranoid. This is not what cops are supposed to do. It's fucking over my head a lot.
I was certainly nervous, but after a couple hours went by, I wasn't too worried about it.
Well, the guy says you took his money. Well, prove it. You have me on video? You got me on tape? Audio? Anything? No? Well, his word against mine. And I'm a cop.
Things began to change when I started to find money and drugs at different locations. I was in control now. That gave me the real feeling of being in control. I've been throwing this shit out for years. Now all of a sudden, it's a moneymaker. I'm like, okay. A kid had done a stick-up on Fulton. He ran home, hid in his house. We knocked the door down, went inside. I knew we were in a coke house, triple beam scales everywhere. So I hacksawed this briefcase open. I stuck my hand and I ripped out this bag. A plume of fucking white powder was flying. I said, pay dirt. Bags. I'm putting bags in my coat. At the time, it was $30,000 a kilo for coke. So we know if we had a half or a 1, we're getting $20,000 at least. And I took the money and bought a condo in Myrtle Beach. I love the golf, and I know Myrtle Beach was a golfer's haven, and it's on a beach.
"13 New York City police officers have been suspended.
Police are accused of accepting money from drug pushers and committing burglaries.
It's the worst police scandal in this city in years.
Little crew of cops were raiding homes and raiding drug locations.
My brother's a fireman in the 7-7 precinct. And he calls me up and he says, "What's going on in the 7-7? Cops are coming into the firehouse and they're borrowing ladders and hatchets." The cops were using the ladders to go to these locations where they knew the drugs were, and they were using the axes to break down the doors. These guys had no finesse whatsoever. These guys were absolutely berserk.
12 officers had been charged with corruption in a Brooklyn precinct dubbed the Alamo.
The 7-7 scandal shook up the whole department. When that broke, there were huge rumors on how the next scandal was going to break into 7-5. So all those dirty cops started leaving the department. People doing crooked shit was afraid a new scandal was going to break out.
I wind up resigning shortly afterwards because, I felt the heat was on, the pressure was on. And I figured, hey, listen, you know what? If I resign, maybe I could beat this.
Mike Dowd was the only one who gambled. He bet that the department didn't want another scandal.
The last thing the police department wanted after the 7-7 was the 7-5 to go down in this bust situation as well.
There were not any other cops like Michael Dowd.
He was a criminal. Dowd was a criminal.
Look up in the dictionary, I don't give a fuck, and Mikey Dowd's picture is in there. It's right there.
Michael Dowd was a crook who ended up wearing a cop's uniform.
I heard the rumors about Michael, being dirty.
A once-in-a-generation corrupt cop.
It don't fucking bother me.
The normal person that's doing wrong is going to have a fear of being caught. It's not Michael Dowd. Michael Dowd did not have any fear.
I never had a fear about getting busted because the cops around me would never give me up.
How busy was the 75th precinct? How many radio runs a day does it average police officer handle?
I averaged about 250 calls a month.
And in a precinct of that nature, you just mentioned a moment ago that it was particularly necessary to forge bonds with other cops because of survival. What do you mean, that you protect each other on the street?
Yes, very much so.
Do you believe if a cop is not a good cop in the way you describe it, that his safety in a command like that might be jeopardized?
Yes.
The streets of New York and Brooklyn in particular, it's like a bloodbath. I mean, it was 1,000 shootings a year in my precinct alone, 100 murders a year. You want to go home at night. So part of going home at night is the guy that's with you, you got to trust him.
175 2nd Avenue, 10-4.
About 2 years working into the 7-5, I had an opening in my car.
Kenny was griping that the only one left around was this Michael Dowd.
He was trying to find himself a partner. I was on the no-good list, so he wouldn't work with me, because he had heard all the stories.
I actually went to roll call. I said, stop putting Dowd in the car. I don't want to work with him. And it fell on deaf ears. We started working together.
Before you know it, we started to get a little bit of comfortability working with one another. He would take me to Joe's Bodega for some fucking Heinekens.
We make a personal connection about our wives. We got married at the same time. We're both around the same age. We had sons at the same time. There was a real personal connection there.
I gained his respect, and then his trust. And it came to a point, I says, why don't you make this official?
And at some point he goes, you need a partner, I need a partner, We're both good cops, we got all this in common, let's be partners.
Our future lieutenants. His friends would come over and say, you can't be with him. This guy's trouble. He was totally corrupt.
They said to me, no, don't work with Dowd, you're gonna end up in trouble, give up the car if you have to.
It's no joke. This is a big mistake.
I could see the pain he